In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct right here from the SHR Media sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent studios, where we are broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, 2 miles east of the Looney Bin, the locus of all evil on the entire left coast. That would be the Capitol building in Sacramento, California, spelled with a K, at 10th and L Street, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense howling out that kitchen door. And you better not let him in. Oops, wrong one. There we go, and you better not let him in. Little old lady got mutilated late last night. What song is that from? Come on, everybody, tell me. Golly gee, you got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. It is Thursday night, and it is August 15th, the year of our Lord 2019. Flackbait is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. Where is it these days? Oh, that's right. To my right, your left. There it is right there. That means that you can listen and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show simulcasting on the SHR Media YouTube channel and the SHR Media Facebook page. I beseech all of you, go over to shrmedia.com and jump into the chat room right there. That's the only one that is officially monitored by me, the official monitor. I got to tell you this. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing in sake of the speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet. Jiggle the handle. And don't forget to tip your waitress. Muy importante. So this is the second and the last show for the week. Nothing has occurred this week. We did happen to have a Shat show last night with Sackheads Clint. We didn't do half the... well, of course, it's what we don't do. We didn't get to a fraction of the things that we wanted to cover last night. So it probably should not shock you at all that I'm going to cover a lot of that stuff here tonight. I have a returning visiting guest. He is from the land of Oz. And that would be very much down under. And he's the only guest, really, that I don't feel bad calling into the show, because most of my guests, for whatever damn reason, happen to be from the East Coast. It just works out that way. So, let's see. 8:05, right around that. 8:04 here. Generally, most of my guests, it would be, 11:04 on the East Coast, or it's 1729 and 723.72 hours, subsector Groot Cluster 4 in Bolivian time. But Bolivian time is just kind of weird. However, at 8 o'clock here in Oz, it was 1 p.m., which means that Jack's been up for a while, and I'm not keeping him up late, and I'm really happy to hear that. So welcome, Jack Alexander. Welcome back to the Saloon. Okay. Take two.
Put your teeth back in.
Yeah, right. This is weird. I actually do have all my teeth. Take two. Welcome back. If I had a producer, if only I had a producer. Welcome back to
I'll
the
just,
Saloon.
I'll just sit here and give myself a golf clap.
Okay, all right. Yeah. We used to, at work at EVOC, we used to call that the PGC, which is known as the polite golf clap. And it went, ooh, that sounds like something else. Okay, I'm going to completely avoid that. Anyway, for the American truckers who are listening in, welcome. If you're a first-time listener or viewer, welcome to you as well. I am a conservative. I am a conservatarianism. God, I wish I had a producer. I am a conservative, little L libertarian. I used to be a registered Republican. Now I am a registered independent. I am as far away from a Democrat as you can possibly be. This is not going to go well tonight. And Jack Alexander is about as possibly far away from me as he could be as well, because he is speaking from Australia. First things first. Number one, thank you for being here again tonight.
You're welcome.
Number two, tell folks where you can be found on either websites or social media, and please tell folks about your radio show.
Oh, wow, there is so much there to cover. I am on weeknights from 7 till 9 p.m. Eastern. That's U.S. time, not Australian time, on The Range. You can get that on Roku, your smart TV, all of that. I have my Facebook, my live stream on Facebook as well, through The Range Media there, also on my Jack Alexander Experiment Facebook page. I have the Jack Alexander Experiment YouTube channel. We live stream into that. Since we've last spoken, I've started up the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, which is at the moment coming out daily. It's stuff that I don't normally cover in the show. And you can also find me at www.jackalexanderexperiment.com and on Instagram and Twitter at ExperimentJack. I think that's everything.
I should also point out that you have a 2-hour show. It's not just a 1-hour show, folks.
Yeah.
And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that is a big, big difference. Providing not just 1 hour, but 2 hours of content every day, Monday through Friday. Now, you said you're doing a podcast. Jack Alexander, how long is your podcast? Is it an hour, half hour?
They're relatively short. They're sort of between the 5 to 6 minutes mark.
Oh, okay.
Just to keep it short. I was doing a slightly longer form one and only doing those a couple of times a week. And in speaking with my audience, I said, look, how would you prefer this? Would you prefer a longer form podcast, just a couple of times, 1 or 2 times a week, or would you prefer me to do more frequent but shorter bits and pieces? And for the overall, because most of the same people listen to my long form program, they just want that something shorter that they can grab in between, listen to while they're in the shower or what have you, and then get about their day and so on. So I sort of moved over to the shorter, more frequent style of the podcast.
Okay, for people who are not aware of you, because the folks that are listening tonight may not be the ones that were listening when you were originally on the show, and you were kind enough to say that you would come back, and you're here tonight. And here's something interesting that you offered that I may take you up on, is on the times when a certain person with a longer proboscis is not around on Wednesdays for the Sackheads Against Tyranny show. I may be giving you a buzzy-wuzz to come on the show, because there have been times when I've wanted to go on, but I thought, I do 6 hours of content a week. And okay, I've got nothing on you, but still, that's a lot of stuff to put together. And then I thought, it's supposed to be a 2-person show. He's not interested, so I just may take you up on that. But that having been said, give us a little bit, not your entire CV, but a little bit about you and where you are in Australia, and you're attempting to get into the United States. Just a little bit so people will know a bit more about you.
Quite simple. I was born in a rural town in Queensland in Australia. My father was a livestock auctioneer. My mother stayed at home. Got to travel around much of the rural areas because livestock auctioneers tend to hang around people with ranches that have livestock.
Right.
Left home at 15. Lived on the streets for a couple of years, petitioned the courts to join the military before I got into any real trouble. The courts were happy to grant that. Served 10 years in the Australian Army in the Special Air Service Regiment. I saw numerous deployments, many of which were fighting alongside U.S. forces in Desert Storm 1, Somalia, and a few other places around the world, Sinai Peninsula and so on. And only left the military because of a training accident. I was in a mid-air collision that killed 16 of my brother's soldiers. It sort of rendered my Special Forces career behind a desk, and I didn't want that. As I was getting out of the military, I got involved with radio back in Australia. I was doing radio comedy, doing a lot of writing, character voices and what have you. Basically, if there was a joke about feminine hygiene products and crabs bungee jumping, I was probably writing and performing it.
Wow.
So, don't hold that against me.
Okay. Feather in the Mark 1 Model 1 cap. Nice.
But when amalgamation came to radio, this whole U.S. model of big companies buying up all of these radio stations in all the major markets and bundling them all together, the company that I was working for at the time overextended to the point of almost going into bankruptcy, and being a relatively new hire, I got 86 out of that. But the guy I was writing for and as part of his show, that reputation carried some baggage. Sort of like, if you'd worked for Howard Stern and then you wanted to go for a more conservative radio station, imagine how that would play out when somebody's looking at your CV. Gee, do we really want this guy on here? He's worked with this guy. Made it difficult to do that. I love broadcasting. I live it, I breathe it. So I took the opportunity as the internet was starting to really grow up and open up within Australia. I created one of Australia's first dedicated online radio stations for no other reason that I wanted to keep my skills current in the opportunity that would lead to more permanent employment. I didn't know at the time that I did that would actually open up doors in the United States. And
okay.
That has been a massive thing. As I started when I started doing my own show, I was trying to emulate a lot of the maybe not the full style of comedy, but certainly the workload. I wanted to do comedy, but I went from having a cast of a dozen writers, half a dozen people doing character voices and so on, to having to do the whole stinking lot myself, and doing 3 hours of live breakfast radio 5 days a week, writing, recording, pre and post production, before the show, and then doing the 3 hours of live radio. I was killing myself. So I had to reinvent who I was. I didn't want to walk away from the industry because I love doing it. And, I started to get more politically aware and so on. I'd previously run for city council and various other elected positions in Australia because I wanted to make a difference and guide how I thought the country should be running. And somehow I went from doing fart jokes to political talk radio. I don't know how that happened, but here we are today. I covered the 2008 presidential election for a couple of smaller conservative news networks in the United States. And, during that process, they'd said, look, it's in your interest to come over and talk to us. But unfortunately, Barack Obama gets elected. They start talking about reintroducing the fairness doctrine. And, hey, we are, those opportunities dried up. But it opened up other doors. And, I have got a good, large following in the United States of people that have followed me in my various iterations. And became a lover of country music, because what they're playing that's country music now in the United States is very similar to what we were calling pub rock back in Australia. If you went to a bar on a Friday and a Saturday night to see a rock band, it's that edgy rocky sound was there, and it's now coming into modern country. So as I was driving around the United States back in 2009, I'm thinking, wow, this is country? This is good. And, really fell in love with living in the United States. I bought a house in Texas a couple of years ago, opened up a business, but I'm still fighting the immigration fight. And, recent announcements from President Trump don't make it look any easier. And I'm just absolutely frustrated that politicians on both sides of the aisle will bend over backwards to help illegals, but at every step they are making it harder and harder for good people to legally immigrate to the United States. And now with the recent announcement, that if you're on welfare in the country that you're coming from, then, you're automatically going, it looks like you may well be disqualified. Well, almost everyone in Australia gets some sort of government payment. It's a bribe by a socialist government to keep people in line. And the way I'm reading the laws at the moment, just because that, there is a government family allowance because they wanted to encourage more Australians to have kids and so on. And, not that I'd planned on it, but, if the government's giving away money, you sort of take it. But it's now the sort of thing that might also disqualify me. Yeah, I don't want welfare.
I wouldn't think so necessarily, because someone somewhere you would think realize that that's the nature of an entire continent. And by doing so, you would proscribe an entire continent, and that just doesn't make any sense. However, you are dealing with bureaucrats, ... Yeah.
Yeah, and what's really annoying, if I pack up my family and I go to Tijuana, buy a bunch of burkas and sombreros, and I rock up at the San Ysidro crossing point, say, I'm Juan Alejandro Mustafa Muhammad Ramirez, I'm a Mexican Muslim transgender, I'll be in a mansion and your neighbor by Christmas.
Oh, Christmas? This is California with a K. We'd rocket your butt up here to Sacramento, install you with a brand new apartment, brand new furniture, appliances, etc. We'd put you on welfare. We'd send whatever you kids you may have. We'd send them to school. We'd do all these things. Oh, I'm sorry. And we'd pay, California with a K, we'd pay all your medical bills as well.
Yeah. And I mean, the crazy thing is that just a few weeks back, those people applying for visas to immigrate to the United States, the price of that jumped from $450 per person to $1,200 per person. That's on top of all the other expenses. So, there's me, my partner, our 4 kids, and my eldest boy's girlfriend. Yeah, on top of all the other expenses. It just makes it absolutely ridiculous. And there's really no reward anymore for trying to do it legally.
Well, people like motivations. People like to have a reason for doing something. I mean, even in the, let's see, what would this be? Even in the 70s, the mid-70s, I had a French girlfriend for a time. And even then, she told me to do it legally, it took her in the 70s 7 years to get in here. I never heard, or maybe I did, I don't know about the cash involved. But the time to do it legally was 7 years. I can only imagine that it hasn't gotten any better at all.
Well, I've been desiring to immigrate to the U.S. even before I came over in '09. I found out that it's genetic. Me trying to immigrate is a more than 20-year battle. Actually, it's probably closer to 25 years now. And the annoying thing is my mother is a U.S. citizen by birth. Her biological father was part of the Greatest Generation. He was U.S. Army, and for a time his unit was stationed here in Australia, met my grandmother. My mother was the obvious outcome of that marriage. And, after his deployment to us from the Pacific ended, they moved to Delaware. The marriage fell apart, and for while she was still a young child, she didn't realize until she was in her late 60s that she even had U.S. citizenship.
Wow. Okay.
Even that isn't working in my favor.
I don't know. That's just wacky. I agree with merit-based immigration. That's right off the bat. In terms of merit-based immigration, what people don't know is that Canada has had it for quite some time. And in the 80s, there was a massive influx of people from China into, I can specifically recall, Vancouver. And you had to bring folks, and if you were Chinese, into Canada. You had at the time, don't know what the rules are now. I expect they haven't changed that much, or maybe they have under Trudeau. You had to bring $10,000 with you, and it was all about the benefit of Canada. So you can do a lot of stuff. You have been of service. You have been in the service. I have all the sympathies possible for you. The only thing that I could suggest yet is to one day decide which afternoon you're going to choose in order to get your ankles damp and cross the Rio Grande. And you're going to have to change your last name.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. And the silly thing is, there is a very similar condition on U.S. citizens who want to immigrate to Australia. There's a growing U.S. Democrat population here, close to where I'm living. There's even one guy that comes up and speaks regularly at the local library who worked for the Obama campaign. And whenever he puts on a talk at the library, I go there to be the bane of his existence.
Good for you.
Because he starts talking about how the U.S. is a democracy, and I throw my pocket constitution down on the table with a couple of Benjamins. I keep a couple of U.S. $100 bills and say, okay, here's the U.S. Constitution. Here's $200 U.S. Show me where in the founding documents the United States is a democracy.
It is it's a constitutionally federated republic, folks. It's not a democracy.
As I describe it on my show, the United States is a representative republic built on the rule of law that uses democratic tools to enact government. Now, democratic tools is not the same as a democracy.
No, in a democracy, as I pointed out last night, if for whatever the majority of people decided that you're not going to drive a car that is red in color, if the majority rules, the majority rules. No matter what the issue, the majority rules. That's why the founding fathers in the United States were absolutely so brilliant. And one of the main reasons that leftists and Democrats and the American media maggots want to remove the Constitution because it's not living. It's just a bunch of old white guys, etc.
Yeah.
So I've listened. You've got a great show. It's 2 hours every day. It takes a lot of work to do all that kind of stuff because it really is all about show prep. You monitor very closely what occurs here in the United States. And as
I live and breathe it.
Oh, yeah. And there's even a group that I belong to, Australians for America or something like that, that I put the announcements and the promos for the show there. So there seems to be a fair amount of folks in Australia that are interested in what's occurring in the United States. And I say this, and one of the reasons that I also like to speak to you is because you have personal experience with some of the issues that we're currently engaging with. Last week, for example, I had a great call from a female from New Zealand who spoke about how left New Zealand has become, how they demanded that people turn in their guns, and apparently very few decided they were going to go ahead and do that. And I was not aware that New Zealand is such a massive leftist culture. Is that what it's been for quite some time, Jack Alexander, or is there something new in the water that's kind of dragged people kicking and screaming that direction?
Look, it's always been more left of centre. It's very been. I can remember back to the 80s and the sinking of the Rainbow Warrior and so on. When the French sent a team of spies in and they planted a bomb on the Rainbow Warrior because they wouldn't allow French ships to come in unless they declared whether they were nuclear powered and had weapons and stuff on there. Even now, the US fleet doesn't dock in New Zealand unless they declare they've got nuclear weapons on board, and the US won't do it. They've always been left of centre. They've always been passionate about their country and their cultural heritage. That there's that sense of pride there, and they will defend that heritage violently. See what goes on in some of the bars and so on. But in a way, like Australia, they're a bit of a dichotomy. They seem to have the major political parties seem to have picked from each of the US sort of doctrines the bits that they like and discarded the others, and the other side have taken those. So it's a little bit confusing, the system that's there. But yes, generally Australia and New Zealand would be more left of centre compared to, say, the how it is in the United States. I mean, the most conservative political party in Australia is called the Liberal Party, and they're the Conservatives.
Well, that sounds not shockingly a bit like the UK as well. When you think of an Australian, and I don't want to get into stereotypes, except to say that the history of Australia is such that you had to be a tough son of a bitch to get thrown there on a continent that no one was familiar with, in a land where it seems that all the animals have one goal, and that's to kill you. It seems to me that Australia had to have had a great independent attitude and spirit, a fighting spirit, to include firearms. So when I think of an Australian individual in the less urban areas, I think of someone with the ability to defend themselves, because on the continent, well, there are situations where you would certainly need to do that. But back in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack Alexander, the firearms confiscation was
1996.
96? Okay. All right. I was going to say 95, but it was 96. And each country, each set of individuals frequently can serve as examples of either what to do or what not to do. I got about 1 minute before the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, what I would like to do is have Jack Alexander, because he's there. I'm guessing you were there in 1996, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you are a personal witness to what occurred in Australia, because what occurred in Australia is precisely what the leftists want today for all the denizens of the United States. When we come back,
I I lost firearms in the whole thing. So, yeah, I can really touch on it.
Oh, hell yes, I want you to. So when we come back after the break, we're going to talk to Jack Alexander. Obviously, he's been kind enough to say that he's going to be here for the entire 2 hours. And again, thank you for that. I really appreciate the time that you're spending. But I want to talk to Jack about what happens in that sort of circumstance and the reality of it all. Because it's not just pie in the sky and unicorns. There are some serious consequences to being silly, stupid, and fattening like that. And I think we can learn from Europe, we can learn from Australia, and we have the chance here in the United States to either do things right or screw the pooch by all the numbers possible. Folks, we're going to be right back with Jack Alexander right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes the show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com, go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Be there.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's, wow, the first half hour has just gone by amazingly quickly. We're talking tonight to Jack Alexander, who has his own radio show called the Jack Alexander Experiment, and that's Monday through Friday. You want to find out about Jack Alexander? Oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, very sanely enough, you can find just about anything and everything out about Jack and his show in a one-size-fits-all website at Jack Alexander Experiment, all one word, obviously, .com, jackalexanderexperiment.com. So again, Jack, thanks for being here tonight. Australia went through something that all of the leftists and Democrats and the American media maggots, which is my term for the American media, because they are, they want to see installed as quickly as possible in the United States, and that is firearms confiscation. There is no other alternative because every form of firearms law that they've installed, and we haven't seen the ridiculous stuff that they want to do that's all coming if they win in 2020, guaranteed. But it eventually is going to lead to firearms confiscation because that's their ultimate goal. And they're not even shy about saying it now. It used to be about a year ago, year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, that they were shy. They would couch their language very carefully. They would parse it a little bit. No, today, no, screw it. We want gun confiscation, and we want it now. And our police departments are responding to that. They're becoming even greater. There are greater and greater limitations being placed on them politically, mostly on police departments, because they are run by chiefs of police who are generally political appointments as opposed to sheriffs who are elected in various areas around the United States. So sheriffs don't have to dance quite so much to the political tune, but if you're in what I term an urban rat cage in America, you can just about guarantee that the departments are going to be run by leftists, and it's no shock that many officers in those locales are leaving law enforcement, and they're also having a much more difficult time trying to find individuals to replace the folks that are retiring. I retired in 2016. Wow, if I only retired in 2116, that'd be another 100 years. And I'm glad I did. I missed the job terribly. That's a story for another day. But what Australia went through is what leftists want installed now as soon as humanly possible. So Jack Alexander, you were there. You saw it. I believe there was one predicating event for that massive turnaround in 1996. Can you give us a little bit of a background as to what led up to that, what happened during the confiscation itself, and what were the results of that?
Well, there are actually two incidents that led up to it. They were a few years apart. First was the Hoddle Street shooting here in Melbourne, Victoria, where a nut job with a rifle shot up a main arterial road and a train station. That state, the state of Victoria, decided, okay, obviously law-abiding Victorians aren't adult enough or law-abiding enough to have these sorts of semi-automatics. And they didn't call them assault weapons back then. If it was semi-automatic, they were getting rid of it. You had to turn it in. There was no buyback. It was nothing. These are now illegal. You will turn them in or you will be convicted as a criminal because of that one incident. What the Victoria Police and the Victoria State Government did with those guns is one of the reasons why the ban went so national when the Port Arthur incident happened in 1996. The state government and the Victoria Police took up all of those semi-automatic guns that they'd seized, they'd stolen off the people, took them to a neighbouring state to a gun show, and sold them.
What?
Now, the nut job... Yeah. This is the part of the story that a lot of people miss out on.
Oh, hell yes. Who hears about that today? That's insane. If gun confiscation is your real goal, unless your goal is to just make money.
And then Martin Bryant, the Port Arthur shooter, was holidaying with family in Adelaide, went to the gun show. It's not like in the United States where if he bought something in Adelaide and transferred it overstate or interstate, that there'd be a procedure that you have to go through to do that legally. But he just bought them there, took them back to his home state, the island state of Tasmania, and used them to commit this other atrocity. Now, in the fallout of that, and they were after these things happened, they were tracing the weapons. Well, hang on, we've got records that these were turned in Victoria by someone, because one of the news agencies actually published the serial numbers on it, and the previous the Victorian owner of the AR-15 that was used said, hang on, I turned that into the police, and they said that they were destroying it.
Uh-oh.
And that's how the story came out. And in a knee-jerk reaction, the federal government then turns around and says, well, obviously, even states can't be trusted with the control of firearms. That's it. It's a blanket federal ban. Many states, especially the more rural states like Queensland, Northern Territory, Western Australia, where we've got the real nasty, bitey sort of critters like crocodiles, and so on, was a case of, well, no, we're not going to do this because these are critical tools for agriculture. It's not uncommon to have someone out, driving around their property with a small Ruger 1022 or something to dispatch an animal that's been caught up in a trap, a fox or a dingo or something that's been attacking wildlife and stuff, and they were using a semi-automatic. No, you got to get rid of them. They even tried to get rid. They got rid of semi-automatic shotguns. They got rid of, for a long time, even semi-automatic pistols. If you had a pistol, if it wasn't a revolver, you weren't getting it. That has recently changed because Australians keep winning shooting sports in the Olympics, which sort of bamboozled the whole thing. One of the first medals won in the 96 Olympics after the gun ban went into effect was Michael Diamond in one of the shooting disciplines. And, the government was asked, well, what did you say? Oh, that was very good. But the silly thing is, for him to actually train now, he had to take a coaching position for the Sultan of Brunei so he could keep his guns. He had to go over and live in Brunei and teach the Sultan to keep his skills up at the time because of the bans, because there was so much confusion. I mean, under the firearms laws in Australia, your Daisy Red Ryder is considered a firearm.
A BB gun.
I mean, let's face it, a BB gun. I mean, the weakest of all BB guns. Airsoft is absolutely forbidden. Paintball. A brother of a colleague of mine had a paintball operation, and when the laws came in, and because if it used compressed air or springs or whatever, paintballs use compressed gas to fire, to function.
Right.
And he's gone into the police department to their firearms officer. To say, look, I run a business. I've got 300 of these paintball guns. I got 40 acres of land that people run around shooting each other up with paintballs. How is this law going to affect me? And the police sergeant there says, oh no, you should be fine. 3 months later, he gets raided by the very same division of Victoria Police, and he's up on 300 felony counts of possession of illegal firearms. Thankfully, the judge sort of said, well, hang on, he has made an effort to try and get clarification on the law, and the police have told him the wrong thing. Okay, case dismissed on that part, but you can't have these back. Still destroyed his business.
Okay, well, then clearly that would eliminate all sorts of pellet guns. But what about the guns that you use to fire, I don't know, say the nasty dwellers under the sea, sharks? Those are, if I'm not mistaken, those are propelled by compressed gas. Can you even have those?
Spear guns, you can't have the propelled gas, the compressed gas type, but you can have those that use the bungee rubber.
Oh, okay. So wrist, what we call here a wrist rocket in the United States, which is, a Y with a rubber thing attached onto it to shoot ball bearings and whatnot. That's okay. And you can have
No. Slingshots aren't allowed.
Oh, no slingshots. Okay. All right. Okay. Damn me for thinking that. I need to be slapped.
Yeah, because it's an untethered projectile. They outlawed crossbows because they look like guns. Archery is pretty much a dying sport, because untethered projectile. But yeah, a spear gun that just had the two rubber lines on it that hooked onto a spear, even though it had a pistol grip and so on, they're still allowed, but you can't put power tips on them. I mean, a lot of people that went out spearfishing for sharks used to put had a head on their spear gun that took a 308 shell, and no, that's not allowed.
Okay, then the next logical question would be, of course, then that completely eliminated the hand loading business. It completely eliminated the black powder aspect. And it completely eliminated your ability to use explosives in mining or commercial venues? Was that the logical extension as well?
Explosives have always been heavily regulated here. I can't think of a time where, unless you had a particular license and you were vetted, even before the gun ban. Now, certain historical firearms. Look, people can still have firearms in Australia now, but you're limited to bolt action sorts of things, or break barrel shotguns is essentially what you're limited to, and now full size handguns for some of the competitions. But whether it's a pellet gun, or you can still buy pellet guns and so on, because a lot of feral animal hunters still use pellet guns.
Okay.
But to have firearms in Australia, to even start the application process, you give up your right to refuse police entry into your home without a warrant. That is a right that you instantly have to surrender to enjoy the shooting sports. Black powder, people still mess around with black powder and so on, but they're still got to be kept in a gun locker. The powder's got to be stored separately. The police will come down and do regular inspections of your gun safe, and if your firearm is not in that gun safe at the time they knock on the door, you are screwed. A neighbor of mine was going deer hunting, and he'd been assigned a particular weekend for a particular species of deer, because they were trying to encourage the population to grow and encourage the sport at the time. But he was assigned a weekend. That was the only weekend that his tags would be valid. 4:00 in the morning, there's a knock on the door. Who is it? It's Victoria Police Firearms Inspection. Okay. He opens the door. He's cleaning his 308 rifle so he can go hunting. He hasn't had it out of his gun safe in 18 months. So he's cleaning all the storage oil out of it, but he's opened the door because he knows. He said, "Oh, hang on a second. I'm just going to put my gun back in the gun safe." Now, as a cop yourself, what would be your next response?
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yeah. That's a police shooting waiting to happen.
Yeah, I can hear the door getting kicked in from here.
Yeah.
His door.
Yeah. And so it was a case of, well, okay, so he's complied with the police request to open the door, as he knew that he had to. But there is his bolt-action .308 rifle stripped out. He wasn't in a condition to fire. He had it stripped out. He was cleaning it on, but they did him because the law gave no leeway. And the police have made the police have made it very clear at the time that they are going to keep knocking on the doors of law-abiding gun owners until every one of them gives up the sport.
Have they said that?
Yeah.
They have said that. They're going to continue to harass citizens. Well, wait, you're not citizens over there. Have you ever asked yourself whether or not, as someone pointed out in chat, have you ever been asked or thought, hey, we're not citizens, we're subjects, we're proles, we're groundlings, we're serfs now?
Well, they've always referred to us as subjects of the British Commonwealth. And, there's that mentality. And, one of the reasons why Australia didn't have something like a Second Amendment included in the Constitution was basically you pesky Americans bitch slapping the British 6 ways from Sunday on 2 occasions. When Australia got its independence or quasi-independence from Britain, the condition was that they were allowed to write, the English Crown was allowed to write certain parts of the Australian Constitution that can never be repealed. And first and foremost in all of that, the Australian Constitution says that the Crown affords the citizens of Australia the following privileges. And they also made it very clear that the right to keep and bear arms and form a free and well-regulated militia is absolutely forbidden.
Lovely.
Now, why would that be?
Well, apparently, your folks were a little bit more aware of history than others, and they used that perspective, that historical perspective, to think something similar to, well, we did learn our lesson in one aspect, and we'd just rather not have that happen again. It didn't go well for us.
And a lot of the flag officers from that period of history were sent to the Australian colonies as punishment postings for losing the Americas. So it was really in their vested interest to instill this in the foundation mentality of this nation as it was starting to form.
Okay, well, that answers a lot of questions, but the next question that I have is, I distinctly remember you saying in the first half hour that you personally lost firearms in this shindig. So I want to hear about that experience. Plus, I'd like to hear what you have to say regarding the results, because everybody that references that on the left here in the United States says, oh, Australia became so much safer, so much better. They're so much more civilized than we are, and that's why we want it, because look at Australia. Look what they've done. It's the crown jewel in gun confiscation. Well, gee, is that true, Jack Alexander?
Oh, no. Now, I personally lost 153 firearms. I was a collector. The only way I was going to be allowed to keep them was to render them inert. Now, the joy of my collection was they were all functioning, including some of the prototype calibers of the M1. I mean, they only, some of those first-generation prototypes, they only made a few of them. So to actually have a couple in a collection is a windfall. You can't, put a value on that.
No, some of those things you can't find.
Yeah. And, the thing was that they said it was a buyback. Bullshit. When I fought turning my guns in to the point of bankruptcy, I'd found buyers overseas which would have taken them out of the country into live fire museums and so on, and I would have been paid a lot more than probably what they were worth, but no. The government wanted them, and they wanted to destroy them. And, I fought that to the point of bankruptcy. In the end, I just had to hand them in because, up until then, I'd been a law-abiding citizen. And when I moved into a state that required registration, I registered them. My first big mistake. And, so they knew I had them. And, in the end, it got to the point I'm broke. I need the money. They've forced me to this point of bankruptcy. So I turned them in thinking, well, I'll get, they said they're going to give me a fair price. I got less than 1/10 of the insured value of my weapons. 1/10.
Okay, so apparently you discovered that your government lied to you. So I'm curious, post-1996, however, because we should all want to be like Australia. Post-1996, though, what was the effect, if any? And I have to say that there's probably no effect on crime. As a matter of fact, crime probably plummeted. It hit rock bottom. Crime just damn stopped, didn't it, Jack Alexander? Didn't it?
No. Many of the organised crime families decided they were going to go to war in a series of organised crime shootings in Melbourne. Certain religious groups known for their peace and tolerance out of the Middle East are the biggest black market importers of firearms into the country.
No.
In fact, there have been more mass shootings in Australia post the ban, all with illegal weapons, than there were before the ban was even brought into place. The violence level, violent crime in general, raised to the point to hide the fact that violent crime had risen. The state police agencies in their reporting were deliberately underreporting the seriousness of crimes, even to the point where an acquaintance of mine was raped in her own home by the drug addict over the back fence. And had it have not been that the police prosecutor had previously worked the rape squad, he was only charged when it came up to court originally with the break and enter. The rape and violent sexual assault was not on the docket. That's how that they fudged the crime statistics. And the gun violence has gotten to the point in Australia now where they couldn't hide, they could no longer hide behind the 20-year-old story that, these were unregistered weapons, they're heirlooms that were hidden up in the attic, and we never, because they weren't registered, we didn't know they existed. And then we had a couple of big terrorist-related incidents, like the Lindt Chocolate Cafe, a shooting of a New South Wales police forensic scientist outside the front door of State Police Headquarters. A 16-year-old jihadi guns down a police CSI with a Gen 3 Glock no more than 6 months after Gen 3s went on the worldwide market. And, at that point, it was sort of saying, well, look, this thing was only made 4 months ago when they tracked the serial number down. It was manufactured 4 months ago in Europe. We can't keep saying this is an heirloom. These stories started falling apart. And about 2 years ago, the Australian Federal Police finally came clean and said that there are some 20,000 illegal handguns in the United States, mostly Glocks, that they have no idea where they are. And nearly 1,200 of them are the fully automatic varieties, which have never been legal in this country.
Wow. Wait a minute. Now, that just doesn't seem right. We got about 1 more minute before the top of the hour break, by the way. That just doesn't seem right, because leftists keep telling us and assuring us and assuaging our fevered brow that once firearms are confiscated, evil stops. It just comes to a crashing halt, and crime just nosedives, completely nosedives. Apparently that's not exactly accurate. Folks, we're talking to Jack Alexander. He's speaking live from Australia. We are hearing about his experience with firearms and the gun confiscation in 1996. When we come back, we're going to get into some politics. We're going to be talking about the Democrats, and we'll be talking about some of the recent events. We'll be talking about SCOTUS, and we'll also be talking about 2020. So I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. This is the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, and we'll be right back after this. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being in chat, and thanks for listening later on. Ooh, time travel in podcast.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes the show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now the second hour. The first hour went by quick like a bunny. And we're talking tonight to Jack Alexander of the Jack Alexander Experiment. He is live from Australia. It's now 2:05 p.m. where he is right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I said I wanted to talk about politics, but for the moment, let's continue on this. It's not a shock that I was in law enforcement for a real long time. I retired in 2016. Overall, with all the agencies that I worked for, etc., that was 41 years. Happy that I retired. There are some days, especially considering all this bullshit that's going on these days with cops, that I kind of wish I was back and could try to be some kind of an influencer in some fashion. I sent the promo for this show to a retirement group that I belong to of law enforcement officers. And I posted this question. I haven't looked to see if I've gotten any replies. But one of the things that I attached was a question that said this. I hope it doesn't come to this, but it's been a question that has rattled around my wheelhouse for quite some time. And that is, what happens if someone demands, in my opinion, unconstitutionally, that you go to House X in order to confiscate a firearm? And it doesn't fall under, say, a red flag law. We're going to be talking about red flag laws next Tuesday. California has had a version of the red flag laws for quite some time. That's not what they were called. Today you can go get them under EPOs, which are emergency protection orders. You can get them removed under 5150 or domestic violence 273.5. There are a couple of ways where you can lose your firearms. But the question to law enforcement is, absent that, let's say there's an order from, I don't know, someone in D.C. who's been installed and said, like Australia, if you don't turn in your firearms to include X, Y, and Z, we're going to have to make a visit to your house. And my question was, how many people in law enforcement would do that? And you'd better ask yourself that question, especially these days, the people that are in law enforcement. One of the first things that I would tell a trainee when I get them into my automobile as a training officer on the street would be, have you envisioned or asked yourself the question as to whether or not you can actually wield deadly force? Because truly, by the time you're sitting your most intimate butt into my automobile in the passenger seat or the driver's seat, you better have already examined all of the facets of the application of deadly force. To now include, you'd better start thinking if you, as an individual law enforcement officer, are going to honor your oath. And your oath is against, to make this nation safe against all its enemies, foreign and domestic. And to make sure that you uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, which has not changed. Now, maybe I'll get crap for asking that question, and maybe I won't. But it's a question that someone, I can't foresee it not occurring, not this year. I don't even know when anymore. But it's a question you'd better start asking yourself if you're a member of the law enforcement community or whether you're in the military. Because if law enforcement won't do it, you can be damn sure that the military will be applied. Oh my God, BZ, those are apocalyptic times. Why are you even saying stuff like that? Okay. All right. Moving right along. Hey, Jack Alexander, here's California. California has some of the most severe gun laws in the entire nation. And yet the Riverside shootout, which occurred earlier, a CHP motor officer made a vehicle stop on a guy. That was the 14th. And, no, I'm sorry, it was the 13th. A motor officer made a vehicle stop on a guy and was about to impound his pickup truck. And he came out with an assault rifle and began shooting at and killed that motor officer. And then engaged with a rifle other individuals that came up. Now, I'm not supposed to tell you this because people don't want this out. But what are you going to do, arrest me? Because that's a big cup of I don't care at this stage of the game. What I need to tell you is somehow in the intervening time, because to impound a car, there's a lot of paperwork. You have to call for a tow truck. You have to wait for the tow truck, etc. Apparently, don't know for sure, this guy somehow contacted his girlfriend, I'm guessing through a cell phone, had her come over to the site of the vehicle stop. She's the one that provided him with the weapon. And I guarantee you have not heard that before today. But wait, this is a felon. He was arrested and did time for attempted murder. This is California with a K. How did this man, because we have so many laws on the books proscribing firearms, how did he get a hold of a firearm?
And he was on parole, too. I hadn't heard that the girlfriend had brought the gun.
Yeah, well, I'm not supposed to say that.
But hang on, an assault rifle in California? I thought Pelosi, Schumer, and Feinstein had managed to get all of those removed into those stupid, was it non-specific fire or whatever the term is for it now. But I thought they'd managed to get rid of all of those sorts of things out of there.
Yeah, I'm one of those weird people that really doesn't believe in the term assault rifle. It's either a rifle.
Neither am I.
It's either a rifle or a carbine or a pistol or a submachine pistol, et cetera, a semi-automatic or a fully automatic. And then, of course, what you didn't hear about is that a day later, let's see, this occurred on the 13th, a day later on the 14th, early in the morning, not far from me here, shots were fired at an unmarked police car in West Sacramento. Luckily, in that incident, no officers were hurt. Then we had the situation in Philadelphia, where there was a standoff, and I believe the guy gave himself up. It was a constant barrage of fire. The police responded. They did a hell of a job of cordoning off folks, etc. But wait, now this is Philadelphia. Well, first we had California, and firearms are so illegal in California. And we have Philadelphia. Well, they got to have nasty firearms laws too. How do these people keep getting guns? I don't get it. It seems like they're not obeying laws. And then here's the pièce de résistance. And this happened before, and people have been goading for quite some time. It happened in New York. And when the cops in Philadelphia are attempting to protect the citizens and engage the suspect, then the citizens in Philadelphia who were yelling and screaming and throwing things at the cops that had been protecting all of these people for the past 4 to 8 hours during an active shooting, well, this is how they reacted to the cops. As all the cops are doing is walking through a crowd trying to get to... There's a guy that hits an officer. There's somebody throwing something at an officer. They keep walking. They're yelling and screaming. That gal pulls on an officer's shoulder. And this is what passes for civility, and this is the response that law enforcement gets in various urban rat cages when they're attempting to protect the various people that are involved. Now, I hate to bring this up, but leftists have forced me to. In certain situations, you have to say something similar to, thank God that that was a black community, and thank God that it was a black guy that was tossing all those rounds out, because can you imagine in Philadelphia if the person who was shooting at cops and most of the people in East Philly in that area, which is where I think this was, they're predominantly black. Can you imagine the narrative that we'd be listening to at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And the other, I don't know whether you've heard this side of the story too. Apparently, the guy they were arresting was the local most popular drug dealer.
Oh.
And the story that I heard was most of the people that were complaining was, who are we going to buy our smack from? You're arresting the best dealer in the area.
Yeah. Here's another delicious aspect that I'm sure you didn't hear about today, or if you did, you heard it, in 5 seconds and in passing. Today, in Philadelphia's Logan section, 5 more people were shot today in Philadelphia. Imagine that.
Yeah. I've lost count of the number of people that get shot on a daily basis in Chicago. I mean, there's a website out there, I forget the name of it off the top of my head, that just charts the number of people that are shot and wounded in the metro Chicago area, and the numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
And
it's funny.
They don't want to address that. They want to keep addressing, like the immigration thing. They don't want to address, they want to target the law-abiding, or punish the law-abiding for the criminal actions of others, because it seems like that's an easier target. Dealing with real criminals is too hard of a task. And with a lot of these incidents, like the cops walking through that crowd there, I mean, they should thank the good Lord that Jack Alexander was not one of those officers, because I would have had my spring-loaded bat now. You can lay a hand on me, I'm going to crack your skull with it. And with a lot of these rallies, where they start targeting police, I'm sorry, if I was the sheriff there, all of those police officers would have been loaded up with paintball guns with pepper balls in it. You start getting out of hand, we're going to come in there and arrest the whole stinking lot of you. And then pass the message. You want to peaceably assemble? We will support your right to free speech 100%. The instant you lay a hand on a cop, you start rioting, looting, whatever, we are going to shut you down and arrest the whole stinking lot of you.
In the United States, that's called the Ferguson effect. And for the administrators who are telling you that there is no such thing as the Ferguson effect, they're lying. There is such a thing, because I still speak to local cops around here and to local administrators and managers on various departments, and they're not supposed to say anything like that, but it actually has been having quite an effect for quite some time. And occasionally, as I've said before, there's only room enough in my head for me and Jack Alexander. You made the perfect transition to where I wanted to go. And that's this. I'm looking at another article that says over the past weekend, 66 people were shot, 12 fatally, in Chicago during weekend shootings. Contrast that with the fact that it's only white supremacists, apparently, that carry guns. And that leads us to an article from The Hill saying that the assault weapons ban picks up steam in Congress. Well, we had that already under Clinton. And as the leftists are wont to do, they're pushing that. They're saying the leftists that are on the 2020 campaign trail are, Joe Biden, for example, saying that he's going to reinstate and strengthen the 1994 ban on assault weapons and eliminate high-cap magazines if he's elected president, declaring, he said this in a New York Times op-ed, we have to get these weapons of war off the streets. Here's another person, another Democrat, Liz Warren. And she said this openly. She vows that she's going to tax gun owners back to the Stone Age with her Second Amendment agenda. Because we all know that the power to tax essentially is the power to destroy. Welcome, Mary Brockman. Good to see you in chat. She wants to tax us.
Isn't it funny that the Democrats have never met a tax they didn't like or a tax rate that's too high?
Right. So this is her promise to us if you elect her. Ooh, this is tempting. She's going to raise taxes on firearms and ammo purchases by 30 and 50% respectively. That's on top of her plan for federal licensing of gun ownership and a federal database of who owns what. Of course, expanded background checks, and naturally, she wants to ban assault-style weapons. You know, and as I've said one time before on another guy's show, it was Ken McClinton, I said, "Ooh, assault weapons are very, very scary. They're painted black, and they've got scary bits on them. They're very scary. And some of them had like a pistol grip, but that's scary. And they have these things they kind of had serrations on the top. That's scary, very scary. And they have something on the front that sticks down like, I think you grab it. That's very scary." They're very scary. Here's Kamala Harris, who says she's willing, and they're not hedging their bets anymore. They're telling you exactly what they're going to do to you in the United States. Kamala Harris says she's willing to have police forcibly take banned guns from your home. Oh, and all the other officers who may have poo-pooed my comments, I don't know if any did, but I'm just saying if you did, or if you're listening to me now, and you're saying, oh, that can't happen. Here's an individual that's telling you that that's exactly what she's going to do. Oh, well, she can't do that. Really? Really? What happens if, for whatever reason, they decide to destroy SCOTUS as the Democrats have already indicated that they want to? Jack Alexander, you're a perfect example in Australia of what has happened. And I asked you then, and I'll ask you now, was that the finest thing that Australia could have done, is ban and then confiscate weapons? Did that have potentially a negative impact on the health and welfare of the citizens of Australia?
Look, it's been an absolute cluster, and you can work out what rhymes with that.
Right.
Having been in law enforcement and the military, gun violence and just violence in general is more rampant now than what it was before the ban. Before the ban, police only wore a stab-resistant vest. Now they look more like stormtroopers with the body armor that they're now wearing. They've gone from just a soft stab-resistant vest under their shirt to wearing an over their garment plate carrier with side plates, front and back plates. If it's safer now because there's supposedly less guns, why do they need to be dressed like walking tanks? And it's an argument I keep putting to them, and it's well, we want to be safe at work and go home. Well, yeah, fine. Why can't the rest of us have it? Because civilians can't buy body armor in Australia. If you work in the security field, you have to essentially get approval from the government to buy body armor if you work or be issued it from the armored car company, who have got a special government license to buy it. You can't get one of those spring-loaded batons. You can't carry mace or any other self-defensive weapon in the street, in spite of the fact that it is more violent in the streets now than it was before the ban. It's a complete, it's just a case of where politicians fear losing power, and as history has shown around the world, and thankfully America has resisted up until this point. But if you look at all the dictators in the world, the first thing they do is they put forward this garbage idea that surrendering their weapons for the public safety of everyone is a good thing, because when the public buys into that argument, and look what happened in Germany, millions of Jews believe that lie. And how did that work out for them? It's not working. Britons gave up a lot of their guns. We got more, some parts of London now are more violent than here in the United States. Like London is more violent than Baltimore. Sydney, not having guns didn't stop a recent convert from Islam from going on a stabbing spree this week. It doesn't solve the problem. They banned guns, so the criminals started carrying knives, swords and machetes. So they outlawed those, apart from people who are licensed in the martial arts and so on. So then they started carrying butcher knives. They put in metal detectors and so on in the streets. So now you've got to show ID to buy plastic cutlery at a dollar store. Because now they melt two of them together and make prison checks to get around the metal detectors. You cannot legislate away the heart and mind of an evil person. If they want to commit violence, they are going to find a way to do it. And if they can't do it by melting a couple of plastic knives together, they'll set their pickup truck with tanks full of propane in the back alight and drive it down a pedestrian mall.
Well, I guess we'd have to proscribe vehicles as well. It's funny you should mention that. I'm looking at this article. Allahu Akbar, Turkish Muslim machetes woman to death in Australia. Machetes a woman to death. The official position of the authorities in response to the man shouting Allahu Akbar and attacking people is... are you ready? Because I need a producer for this. The official Australian response was mental illness.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that weird? No mention of Islam whatsoever. A blood-soaked man screaming Allahu Akbar has gone on a rampage with a butcher's knife. Didn't you just say that, Jack Alexander, through central Sydney, killing a 21-year-old woman inside a unit and stabbing another in the back at a nearby pub? Well, if we take away guns, you've clearly indicated we're going to have to take away knives. Huh. I found this tonight, folks. You are going to love the hell out of this. Oh, my God. Jack, you are going to love the hell out of this. I found this just for you. This is a real article. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I'll get right to you. This was sent to me by Mike in chat. And this is a glorious story. It's wonderful. This is the headline. This is real. British government to tackle knife crime using warnings on fried chicken boxes. I'm not making this up. You can't write this shit. I'm not making this up. The British government has been mocked. Oh, I didn't see that coming. On social media after announcing their strange new initiative to cut knife crime in the country using takeaway chicken. The new campaign, launched by the Home Office, aims to try and combat the stabbing epidemic by plastering the hashtag knife free on boxes of chicken from well-known takeaways. More than 320,000 takeaway chicken boxes with a hashtag and a message against carrying knives have already been distributed to 210 outlets in England and Wales. So what's the first takeaway for that from me? I thought was, someone somewhere must think that people that eat chicken are either criminals or they're knife assaulters in training. You can't write this stuff, Jack. You can't write this stuff.
Oh, mad dogs and Englishmen.
Jesus. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a break early. Mike is on the phone. He wants to talk. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Mike. I think he wants to ask you a question. And so, folks, we're going to continue with this. Jack Alexander has been here for an hour and a half. He said he's going to be here for the entire 2 hours. God bless him. He's live and direct from Australia. I'm BZ at the Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show console, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios in Sacramento, California, spelled with a K.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com, go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Be there.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's the final 25 minutes here at the Saloon. We've had the absolute pleasure and honor of speaking to Jack Alexander, who has his own radio show Monday through Friday, the Jack Alexander Experiment. And if you want to find him, his sort of one-site-fits-all compendium locale on the internet is jackalexanderexperiment.com. jackalexanderexperiment.com. You can find anything you could possibly want about that. You can find his shows, archives, etc. jackalexanderexperiment.com. Mike is on the phone. He's been waiting cautiously and carefully and quietly for quite some time. And Mike, how are you? Oh, wait, hang on. I got to stop this and this and this. Mike, how you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, I've got the proverbial echo in here. Why do I have an echo? Anyway, Mike, go ahead.
You know, I knew you'd like that story, BZ, that I sent you. You know,
thank you.
About the knives in Britain and stuff. But it brings to question, what's next? What's next for them to ban? If they end up banning knives, do they ban forks? Do they ban spoons? Do they ban chainsaws? Do they ban lawnmower blades? You know, what's next?
Well, that's a good point. I'm going to have to figure out why I'm getting an echo. So, Mike, I'm going to have to hang up on this right now. There's something that's occurring right now that's driving everybody crazy, including me. Thank you for the call, sir. Appreciate it. Now, how about now? Okay, see, it's the pot. There it is. Now I got to figure out why I'm getting an echo out of that thing. Okay, moving right along. So, Jack, you mentioned a website earlier. 66 people were shot, like I said, this past weekend. There were 12 fatals in Chicago weekend shootings. I mention this frequently, and I have the website since you mentioned it, Jack Alexander. It's a weird name, but it's a compendium. First, the website. It's called HeyJackass.com. HeyJackass.com. And the subheading for that is Illustrating Chicago Values. And their stats include, in Chicago, August to date, shot and killed 17. Shot and wounded 130. Total shot 147. Total homicide 17. Week in progress 8/11 to 8/17. Shot and killed 2. Shot and wounded 35. Total shot 37. Total homicides 2. Year to date. Here we go. Year to date. You want to talk about mass killings? Here we go. Year to date. Shot and killed 247 in Chicago. Shot and wounded. Hope you're sitting down. Shot and wounded 1,439 people. Total shot 1,726 people. Total homicides 314. Well, those gun laws are really working well, aren't they, Jack Alexander?
Yeah, and Chicago's got more stringent gun control than what Australia has.
Oh.
And the Liberals never want to see these numbers. That's why most of this doesn't come out. If you try and point to that, it's like the whole socialism debate. Oh, well, we just haven't found the right laws yet. The right gun control laws to solve that problem, just like they haven't tried the right flavor of socialism to try to make it work this time. It's always this argument that more control and we just haven't done it the right way yet to make it work. When all they keep doing is making it worse. And one thing about politicians is they never or accept that they get it wrong, and they will never admit when they screw things up. They'll always try and find someone else to blame.
It's funny that you should mention that. It seems as though, I've said this for quite some time, for whatever reason, leftists, to include Democrats, apparently have no grasp whatsoever of the human beast. Apparently, they don't believe in evil. They don't think that people can be evil. They think that a law is something you craft that clearly indicates people are going to be obedient to said law. It just doesn't work that way. The human condition, the human individual, is not wired in that fashion. Speaking of leftists not being wired all that properly, maybe it's time to transition over into politics, because 2020 is not that far around the corner. There's a guy that I read frequently called Victor Davis Hanson. He's a professor of history at Fresno State University, which is about 4 hours south of me here in California. And he wrote an article that says, will 2020 be a repeat of 2004 for the Democrats? He says Democrats by 2004 had become obsessed with defeating incumbent President George Bush. 4 years earlier, in 2000, Bush had won the Electoral College, but lost the popular vote. We talked about this last night. Remember that. Bush won the Electoral College, but lost the popular vote in 2000. Then our friend OMB, Orange Man Bad, did that in 2016. And because of those two Electoral College losses, leftists and Democrats have now concluded we must completely eliminate the Electoral College and rip it out wholesale because they lost twice and their babies. By late 2003, Bush's popularity had dipped over the kind of unpopular Iraq War. He was attacked as a Nazi. I can remember that there was a website, a leftist website called The Smirking Chimp about him. And they did anything and everything that they could to make sure that they eliminated him. Do you have any insights or thoughts, Jack Alexander, about what's coming up for the United States in 2020?
I suppose the best analogy would be an ice hockey game. It is going to be violent.
Yes, it is.
On a metaphorical level. Look, I'm still trying to grasp the American electoral system, because I grew up with what's known as a preferential system, where all the candidates are on the ballot and you put a number next to their name in order of preference, and it goes on that way. So if and then they finally whittle it down till somebody's got a majority of the votes. But over the years, I've been learning about the Electoral College, and earlier in the week, I had. It's been a bone of contention with a couple of my viewers, with me saying that, look, I don't want to see the Electoral College system go away. I do think it could be tweaked a little bit for the more modern age, because even the way the system is now, say in Texas, those delegates are more likely to represent the wishes of the big cities like Dallas, Houston, Austin, more than, say, Wichita Falls, Henrietta, where, the part of Texas where my home is. I don't want to see the Electoral College system go away. I would like to see it tweaked so maybe there is one delegate from every county in the country, because the issues that affect Clay County, where I am, is, a little rural county where there's only about 5,000 people, is very different to a county in Dallas, and so on. And those sort of things are of a different concern. It's not getting rid of the Electoral College, but it's giving the rural and the smaller counties more a better voice in there. But look, that's not going to happen, because the Democrats only support the Electoral College system when it works in their favor, like democracy.
Precisely.
When democracy works in their favor, they're all for it. If not, the voting people are too stupid to realize they're racist, like the statement that AOC made this week, that conservatives are too uneducated to know that they're racist. They change their feelings on it, depending on whether it works in their favor or not. And, that's part of the big tragedy of the whole thing. And the more states give into this, the more, everyday Americans are going to get bent over and screwed royally.
And that's very correct. But But there are a couple of things that are occurring simultaneously these days, because I've noticed more articles in a similar vein to Victor Davis Hanson's that are saying something similar to, don't assume that Trump's approval rating can't climb any higher. It already has. Well, depending on whose poll you watch. Donald Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, doesn't always seem like he's a candidate that he's focused on expanding his base of support. And some people are saying, well, he may have done so already. The share of Americans who say they have a favorable view of him has increased significantly since 2016. And over the past few months, some of the highest quality public opinion polls, except for the new one released by Fox recently, has had him increasing as well. So the Democrats are very concerned about that. They were gobsmacked when Democrats went on attack against each other in the past series of debates. And it wasn't said, and it certainly wouldn't be said by them, but they're attacking each other and some of the elder statesmen and women of the Democrat Party. Those were attacks on Obama. And they were concerned about that as well. So moderates, and there are some, you've seen them in the debates themselves. 2020 Democrats absolutely keep shifting left. And I don't think they can help it. I really don't think they can help it. Any thoughts on that, Jack Alexander?
Oh no, there seems to be this rush to one up each other. You know, who can be the biggest socialist? You know, who can push us so far to the left that the Republic will never recover?
Yeah.
You know, former Governor John Hickenlooper has just fallen out of the race, and you know, sort of reading between the lines of his statement was that I'm too sane to compete against this crowd. You know, sort of the takeaway I got from Hickenlooper's statement that he was getting out. You know, and I, as someone that has lived in Colorado when he's been governor, no, you might be saner than most of them, but I mean, why would you want to be a part of doing or you know, being part of that catfight that's going on? It's like who can be the biggest prophet of doom against the American Republic, and it's really taking on sort of like those big TV preacher levels of fanfare and production to really sell the con. You know, it's more about the stage show and the visuals rather than the real substance of what they're saying. You know, during the first round of debates, after which started sort of just at the tail end of my show was finishing, so I sort of slipped over to my YouTube channel and was sort of commenting along with what was going. I couldn't do it for the second round because I'm there screaming my lungs out, trying to correct these Democrats, you know, for the unconstitutional lies they're trying to push forward as fact. The garbage of their environmental policies have never been tested under proper peer review processes, and it just got so frustrating. My blood pressure was boiling, and you know, people that were watching said, "You need to go and take a chill pill. Your face is red. Your temple is bulging. You know, might not be the safest thing for your health to do this again."
This is a perfect illustration that I found. This is from the Daily Caller. And this is the clarion call right now for leftists, because clearly the moderates, you know, and there are a couple in the debates, they're not gaining traction. But remember Mayor Pete Buttigieg? I remember him. So this guy says Democrats, and he's insistent upon this, he says Democrats have to swing even further left to be able to beat Trump in 2020. He says he is deservedly unpopular, but he could win again. And he said that in Sioux City, Iowa. I think if he wins again, if we look like we're offering more of the same, I think the way he wins again is if we look like defenders of a system that hasn't worked. Whiskey Dale says, Booty Judge, yeah, okay. I like butt gig, because that's how it's spelled, it seems to me. But again, clearly indicating that as far as the leftists are concerned, there's only one course for 2020, and that's even harder, further aport. Is this a workable tactic, Jack Alexander?
No, it's not. And again, it's Democrats doing the same, trying the same tactics time and time again. I mean, there is so much similarity in what they're proposing to what Hillary Clinton was proposing. And I mean, the only reason that Hillary Clinton got as many votes as she did, because we had, more than 3 million illegals voting in the election. Correspondingly, that's how many she beat Donald Trump with the popular vote.
God, get out of my head. I've been saying that for a long time. She won by 2 to 3 million votes. And in my personal opinion, that's how many people potentially, falsely voted for her. And oh, God. Here's another story. It says New York Times. This is the New York Times now. Occasionally we're seeing a little bit of sanity. Not much. A little. But even this New York Times op-ed said, Democrats, they're going to lose the election if they keep on cheering that ambulance-chasing, anti-Semitic Al Sharpton. And here's another one. Here's another article, Jack Alexander. You're going to love this one. This occurred on the last day of July. There were mass resignations at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Top staffers in the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee left their jobs in a Monday night massacre over the lack of diversity. It doesn't matter if you're the most qualified. If you're white, you're not good enough. Allison Jaslow, who happens to be the executive director of the DCCC, a former Army captain, she cried as she resigned because she failed to diversify the DCCC enough. The far-left non-whites wanted her out because she was white. It was a massacre. I love that stuff. I love to hear that stuff. I love to see these fucktards completely disobeying the first rule of holes. I love that stuff, Jack.
Yeah, it's crazy. Mind you, they keep holding up these people like Buttigieg and what's her name from Hawaii. That's just taking 2 weeks off the campaign to go back to do National Guard service.
Yeah, not
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard, right? Okay.
And but the question I've got for a lot of these: how can you honor your oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of this country when your very platform is about destroying the Constitution of this country? Now, during my military career, I got to come over to the United States the first time as part of an exchange program. The first thing they had us do was to swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
Beautiful.
When we left, we never were asked to rescind that. I consider myself as bound to that today as I was the day, back in, the mid-'80s when I took that oath. And I won't turn my back on that. And I asked I had the chance to talk to Montel Williams about a decade ago now, and I said, look, as a Marine, you are the few, the proud. How can you support being your status as a Marine and supporting all of these Democrat policies, and unfortunately he just walked away. He wouldn't answer the question. And I asked the same thing of all of these liberal politicians, especially those that have served in the military. You know, it's just one of the biggest affronts to military honor. You know, just like this recent ad that the Democrats are running, that supposedly a bunch of veterans talking about gun control, that the AR-15 is a weapon of war. Well, sorry, anyone that served in the military knows that an AR-15 and an M16 or an M4, while they might look the same, are very different. I mean, I can put a Ferrari badge on my little two-door convertible Geo Metro, does not a Ferrari make. And I when I saw that ad, I put up there, I said that there is no way that any one of those people have served in the military. Otherwise, I think that this is the biggest case of stolen honor perpetrated by the Democratic Party in the efforts of political grandstanding on the bodies of innocents for the purposes of moving their own political careers ahead and for gun control. It was absolutely disgusting.
Well, we know that's true. We know that the bulk of the military is going to be conservative anyway, because that's the nature of the individual who signs up for those things in any event. For example, you're a social worker. Are most social workers card-carrying Republicans, or are they generally Democrats? They're generally Democrats. How many social workers sign up to be law enforcement people? Damn few. I was looking through the news while you were talking there just a second ago, and I found another article. And this is great, too, because now apparently the Democrats are really concerned about Joe Biden. Here's an article from the Hill saying, Biden allies are floating, scaling back events of Joe Biden to make sure that they eliminate his gaffes. So if he's not fit and they don't trust him to make gaffes or not to make gaffes, how theoretically can he win? I think this is the Fox poll that I was referring to. I found this one just out now. Fox News poll, Biden still leads the Democratic race. Elizabeth Warren, climbs to second. The other thing I found out is that Kamala Harris, well, here's the numbers. Now, Joe Biden is at 31%. He was at 31% in March. Elizabeth Warren was at 20. She's at 20% now. She was at 4% in March. Bernie Sanders was at 23% in March. He's fallen to 10%. And Kamala Harris hasn't done a thing. She's still at 8%.
Yeah, it's crazy. Although I think we might have found an Indian tribe that's willing to take Elizabeth Warren as a member. It's called the Askanki Ho tribe.
Perfect. It's about the end of the hour, folks. We're going to have to take off because we've literally run out of time. Jack Alexander, where can people find you and read you if they want to find sort of a one-size-fits-all compendium of you?
Easy. You can find me on Facebook. Just do a quick search of Jack Alexander or the Jack Alexander Experiment. The www.jackalexanderexperiment.com. I have my podcasts wherever good and mediocre podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and so on. So if you just do a search for the Jack Alexander Experiment there, YouTube, Jack Alexander Experiment. Basically, if you just put Jack Alexander Experiment into most social media platforms, you will find me.
You'll find it. Thank you, sir, ever so kindly for being here tonight. I am going to have you on again. Thank you for donating 2 full hours to the show, and I greatly appreciate that. You're a great guy, a great host. I see how you've gotten to where you are. And you are always, always, always welcome back here again, sir, in the Saloon, any damn time you want.
Thank you very much. I'm always happy to be here.
And thank you, and good day to you, sir. Not evening, good day to you, sir.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Love the heck out of Jack. Thanks for being here.
Monsieur has unlocked!
We'll meet again.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, at BZEP. And also at my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and of course, the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team contingent, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour after I leave the studio tonight. Thanks to Jack Alexander for being here. Thank you for being here so consistently, for listening live, for being in the chat room. And also, I get a great number of hits out of the podcast. Please keep listening in podcast. This is it for the show. See you next Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Get out, enjoy things. God bless, take care. You be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy.
Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.